3, 2, 1.
What is going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and today we got a book that's kind of late in the coming. I've been slipping up on my video reviews. I wish I should have got this out sooner, but the good news is you're not getting spoiled on a Tuesday like so many other YouTube channels. I do like people to go out and have a chance to read their books, but if you haven't got around to this and you're still on the fence, I'm going to be talking about Iron Man #1 by Christopher Cantwell. The writer and I don't think the artist is Cafu. Anyways, this book was donated to me by my buddy Lance, one of the old school comics aficionados from Thinking Critical, and his Twitter handle is @real_Lance_man. If you want to follow him, he's a good guy. Thank you, Lance, if you're watching this video, for the donation. Sorry that it took so long to do a video. Anyone that does donate me a digital book, I'll be happy to do a video on it. It's oftentimes that's one of the big limiting factors, right? So let's get on with Iron Man #1. A little disclosure about my biases and so forth. Christopher Cantwell writes the Doctor Doom book over at Marvel. I bought the Doctor Doom book from Marvel. I wasn't going to. Doctor Doom's one of my favorite characters. One of my viewers had said before the book came out, "Hey Ash, you're going to get this book. It's by this guy, Christopher Cantwell. He writes this TV show. It's a really good writer. I can't wait for the book." Now, I don't watch the show. I don't really know much about it, but I respect the views of other people. Watch my show. If you watch me, wait, that doesn't sound, if you watch me, your tastes are good, but maybe that's, I don't know. Anyways, so I'm like, hey, cool. I want things to be good. I'm not trying to just be, a pessimist all the time. So I bought that book. I even did something I normally never do. I bought one of the ratio variants because I really liked the cover, and I spent extra money on that #1 issue. I did a review on the book. Suffice it to say, I never read beyond issue #1. It did not impress me, Cantwell's writing. He's not a terrible writer. He's not a good writer, but most importantly, was actually the issue was he didn't really get the character he was writing. And unfortunately, that's the problem with Iron Man #1. I feel like he doesn't get the characters that he's writing. He actually probably would be a very good script writer. Someone else maybe had a good Iron Man story, really good plot, and he needed someone to write the script. Obviously, I think Cantwell does have writing skills, but part of the duties, I would say, of writing mainstream comics is keeping true to the characters that have been around for decades, maybe even longer than you have been alive. These characters, they have sort of their own. They're iconic. They have personalities and a history that you don't get to just tamper with and make them your own. I mean, obviously Marvel can sign off and give you that right, but it's not the right thing to do. It's always best to be true to these characters. If you go off and make your own books, you want to go do an independent comic called Iron Guy, Metal Man, whatever, he's a dude in a suit. You write whatever you want. It's your thing. You're designing it. But Tony Stark needs to be, if he's in the Marvel Universe, it's not some Elseworlds story type thing. He needs to be the Tony Stark that we know. So this book opens up. Humanity is acquiring technology for all the wrong reasons. Buckminster Fuller. Monday. You know why that cartoon Tire Man is white, right? Because rubber is white. But then when they started adding, carbon black to tires, makes them last longer. They grip the road better. I just kind of think it's kind of amazing what they can do. So we see that this little girl, she's out on the street, she's playing violin, and the big corporate meanie guy's got to show up, kick her off. Get out of here, kid. But then, how soon we forget we did it. And this felt really pretentious to me, even more in hindsight when I reread the book to do the review. I think Cantwell's overwriting here. And one of the things that really annoys me is this modern trend to do what he's doing here. Tom King is a major guilty of this. Bendis does this, where the visuals do not match the narration. The narrative will be talking about something else completely while we watch a separate story take place. In this case, the story of this girl standing out front. She gets booted while someone talks about how man invented these white tire, rubber, and we made all these achievements, but then lost our way. It's supposed to be metaphorical for Iron Man going forward. We'll see in the story. Now, I get where it's going. That's a good thing. If I were teaching a writing class, I might actually teach how to do these sort of things. But the problem is when you shoehorn this in, like you're so proud of yourself going, look what I can do. I'm going to do it in every story, just ham-fist it in because that'll make my story seem better. So then we go from that whole thing, the girl getting kicked into the big fight. Oh, bam! Iron Man crashes through the building, fighting whoever this guy is. I forget. And we get 1971 Plymouth Duster. Whoops. Semi-fastback, 340 horse V8, gold trim package. Isn't it just a glorified variant? Not under the hood. And this is, I feel like the writer trying to impress me with their car speak. Like, ooh, look at him. How much he knows about cars he can write. Crash! Iron Man goes out of the building. And visually, the art here is pretty good. I really like the dynamicism. I like the exciting shots. But I talk about this a lot in comics, how fighting is a story in of itself. Action stories, comics, action movies, what have you. The action sequences, which often involve fighting, whether gunfights, hand-to-hand fights, sword fights, I'm talking about that nature, are in itself its own form of drama. Any good fight movie, like this is why I think action fans, they really like kung fu films, because Chinese, they get this. Like the story of a fight between two men or a group of men or army, how the fighting unfolds, that conflict is a story of itself. Comics used to get that, but no longer. Nowadays, action is there. It's just an implied thing. It's just to be like, look, action is happening. There's no story to it. It's just, hey, there's a fight happening. Isn't that amazing? It's all spectacle. It's not substance. Sometimes spectacle can be good, right? It crashes through the building. But the whole time, we get this narrative. He gets a phone call, or not a phone call, but his AI assistant or whatever. Attorney update. Separation papers complete and filed. You have officially withdrawn from the board of Stark Unlimited. You aluminum parasite. And so as the fight's going on, now he's talking, he's separating from his board of Stark Industries. Like, come on. Thanks, boss. And what about the stock? Crash. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's something else is happening. Tony's having a completely different thing going on. This fight isn't even interesting to Tony. He's doing actual work. And so none of this matters. The fight is just there to be action scenes, to look spectacular. And look at this shot here. On its own, in a vacuum, this does look spectacular. It looks cool. The problem is, it doesn't matter one iota. Just a couple crash. There's no drama to it. Doesn't matter. We cut over to Tony sitting on a couch with his phone, texting on Twitter. If something doesn't scream to you, modern comic creators interjecting themselves into the comic books, like putting Twitter, I don't know what does. Having characters tweet with online trolls on Twitter is probably the ultimate form of interjecting yourself into the comic books. And so here we see Iron Man tweeting, FYI, Terrax has exited the solar system and is no longer a threat. This is very much indicative of the comic creators, patting themselves on the back or beating their chest on Twitter about something amazing they did and expecting everyone just to be like, oh, isn't that great? And then, of course, he gets the typical responses, which anyone should expect if you've been around social media for 10 years. At Antihero Sandwich says, cool, man. You destroyed com.com-TV satellite. Oops. My internet's still out because of this nonsense. Another guy says, no TV for 6 days. Thanks. At TV Network says, our legal team will be contacting you regarding our satellite's destruction. First of all, no, they wouldn't be tweeting out that they're sending their legal team. That's nonsense. But this is just, who cares? Why is Tony on Twitter tweeting to trolls? Look at this. Have you ever seen a more sad Iron Man in your life? I know that's supposed to be sweat on his cheek, probably, but I think of it as a tear, a little teardrop down his cheek. Seriously? I'm not getting the praise that I deserve. Then we cut to Tuesday and he's having an interview. Very much indicative like the recent 60 Minutes interview we had with the president. Like, so you're stepping away from technology altogether. For now, that's a marketed change in your career. Why? Machines should be building machines now. We need to remember what it's like to be human. Honestly, I need to get back to my roots. What? Isn't your roots building weapons of destruction? What do you mean back to your roots, Tony? This is just nonsense. And then she goes, oh, and by your roots, you're referring to a $65 billion exit package from Stark Unlimited and a $14.8 million Malibu mansion and a computerized iron suit that's dangerous as a thermonuclear weapon. I did reinvest a third of that exit package, which immediately caused a wild 800-point pendulum swing in the NASDAQ this morning. How many people have been killed because of your innovations? Does that have anything to do with your stepping away? And then Tony goes back to tweeting. Whoops, I can't control this. The clearest way into the universe is through a forest of wilderness, he tweets. Isn't that the very thing we saw at the beginning of this comic book that started this whole pretentious nonsense? When you start your comic book or any story with a tweet like that, 9 times out of 10, you're pretentious. Says the guy who made the internet have emotions. Then another guy says, cool, take a hike then. Of course, every response, this is, like I said, I see this. I just had an interaction with Donnie Cates on Twitter. And I didn't have a negative, like I wasn't harassing him or anything. I was basically just trying to be like, dude, like, chill out with this stuff. Like, you're just making yourself look bad by going constantly on and like antagonizing your fan base. You don't need to do that. But what it made me think about when I was talking to him was like, he probably does get hundreds of, I don't need hundreds, but he probably gets dozens of troll people that are, F you, and to him that creates a perception that like so thousands of fans are out there out to get him. And, when I start tweeting him, he just automatically assumes I'm another one of them and he responds real negatively because this is their attitude. This is what I'm seeing when I read this comic book is Cantwell is basically like, yeah, everyone on Twitter is just an asshole, even to the hero. Wednesday, he's selling his home. Pack it all up, Rhodey. All of it? For real? 1970 Boss 429 staying. Too obvious. So now he's having an interview in a car. A cross-country road trip with Gloria Grant. Should be a great article for the Daily Bugle. Why is he even doing this? Why? I don't know. He tosses his phone. Crash. Oh, yeah. That's just so liberating. Actually, I'm going to turn it into a book. What? About you. What's myth, what's real, and what's, problematic. Slams on the brakes. Pricey. But what about a top-notch Shelby Cobra? Crash. Hits a phone pole. Almost goes off a cliff. I had one of those. Didn't love it. Maybe I ought to drop you off at LAX. Like, that's not funny, being completely irresponsible dumbass. Why do modern creators constantly want to write Tony as an unlikable jerk who's just a dumbass too? He's like one of the most brilliant people in the Marvel Universe, but they constantly write him as a dumbass. Thursday. He's now we actually see him at the comp shop. All that other previous narrative is caught up. Do you see he has really slick, out of non-linear storytelling? Part of it's happening in real time, part of it's happening in the past. It's overlapping. It's really sophisticated. It's supposed to impress you. Well, I just don't know if I got what you want, pal. I want simple. You know who I am, but I'm in the midst of recalibrating. Putting some of the iron back in Iron Man. Okay, yeah, I got an idea. 1978 Dodge Aspen, stock, back to basics. You want to soup it up, bore out the cylinders, put in a cap back? Go ahead, do it yourself. I'm sure you know how. Again, either Cantwell himself is a car guy and he's showing off, or he's showing off because he went and did some research so he could write and sound like a car guy. I just not impressed. I'm reading this and going, first of all, I'm a comic geek. I'm not a car guy. And maybe there are some car guys that read comics, but I don't think Tony Stark is impressed with a 1978 Dodge. This is Tony Stark. This is the guy who flies around in Iron Man suits. And I've had some talks with some of my audience about this, and they're like, well, you could appreciate classic cars and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but hold the phone. If he's really an appreciator of classic cars, maybe he's like a Jay Leno type, right? Jay Leno doesn't walk into an auto dealer guy and go, give me something, like he's an idiot. Jay Leno Tony would be the guy doing all the car talk. I want this, da-da-da, what do you got this? No, he's a guy who's like, I don't know, sell me something. I'm just a rich billionaire with money to spend. No, it doesn't ring true. If anything, Tony would want the cutting edge, he'd want one of the new super hybrid, exotics, like McLaren's doing, some of these crazy cars. I'm not even 100% sure what they're named. I've seen them. They're pretty amazing. Or Tony would just build one himself. The dude builds an Iron Man. Why wouldn't he just build his own crazy supercar, right? You think about this. Like Batman has the Batmobile. Why doesn't Tony have his own? Like he could build a car even better than Batman, I would imagine. But whatever. This is just all to add cool factor. So what does Tony do with his 1978 Dodge Aspen? We'll get to that. First, he's on Reddit. Stark bought a historic brownstone on the Lower East Side. $100 says he guts it. He's about as New York as Malibu Barbie. Again, just making fun of Tony, but you don't need to. Because Tony's moved from LA, now he's in New York. And get a loan of this grown. Let's see if... sorry. I'm having trouble navigating Comixology. So he's talking to the dealer about testing. This car narration just never stops, by the way. So he's at his new brownstone. Guy saying you may go home crying. Okay, so anyways, so Wasp shows up. Nice place. Thanks. I just wanted to tell you face to face that I've moved on. I think it's what's best. I agree. Take care. This is the dumbest, like, just out of nowhere, has nothing to do with the story. Just out of the blue, she shows up and says, I just wanted to show up to tell you I'm not thinking about you anyway. Bye. You too, Janet. And that's it. What was the point of that? Other than to say, look, Tony is a fucking loser and Janet's a bitch. Why are you reading Marvel Comics? So we're on Amsterdam Avenue now, because remember what I said? Guess what Tony does with his car? Why, he takes it to illegal street race. Because that's what an Avenger would do, right? Go do illegal street racing. Retarded. By the way, a billionaire going doing illegal street racing. Just imagine if you were a multi-billionaire and you did illegal street racing and you just accidentally crashed your car into something. You'd be sued out into oblivion. Like, you just don't do shit like this because you actually have things to lose. In the real world, rich people, they have a lot to lose. They don't. Anyway, who cares? I'm getting too far. So we get a disabled guy who's deaf because, of course, everyone has got to have something. So they're going to race, and again, there's a little bit of story to the race here, but not much. Deaf kid drives an El Camino because that's what racers use, and of course he beats Tony. And we have 4 pages, I think. 3 pages of the race. 3 pages just of the race alone. Like, and Tony loses. Aww. And then we go back to Twitter. Iron Man says, hosting old friends in New York City tonight. Hashtag, am I a New Yorker yet? You're like, Jesus, boomer. What the fuck? No. Almond Pan says, so you swore off tech, but you're throwing a party for a bunch of CEOs and billionaires. Cool. Antihero Sandwich says, nice burnout last night at Amsterdam. Terrible Beat Golf says, Tony Stark, hero of the common man. Are you bored yet? If you're watching this video this far and you're just like, Ash, get on with the show. Like, what? I'm trying to illustrate to you what it's like to read through this comic. And so, straight out of Tom King, I feel like Chris Cantwell read Tom King's Batman run and said, oh, I got an idea of what to do with Iron Man. Let's have a Bat-Cat relationship. And so immediately throws in what's her name? Hellcat? I don't even remember her name. She's such a D-list character. And she just immediately, she's at this party. Why she's at this party of billionaires, no one knows. It's just not explained. And she immediately draws Tony's attention, and they go off on a romantic interlude. Like, just out of no, boom, within 3 pages. It's just so unbelievable. But before we go there, Christopher Cantwell's not done plagiarizing other storylines. It looks like he's also watched Iron Man 3 in his research to do this book. And we get this gentleman who's like, I got some technology to show you, Mr. Stark. You're going to love it. Yeah. He doesn't give him the time of day. They move on, and we see here, he's just like, well, when you find yourself thinking about it later, call me. And so Tony runs off with the woman, and they're going downstairs. And of course, we got to have it written like this, because every male is a fucking scumbag. By the way, don't do anything gross, or I'll kick your ass. I am so tired of that attitude. If you are really worried about a man doing something gross to you down in his basement, don't go down in his basement with him, because you are not kicking his ass. You're especially not kicking the ass of an Avenger who fights gods. That's just stupid. And if neither one of you are superheroes, you're just not. This is the whole women kicking men's ass thing is asinine. And I'm just tired of constantly having to be like, oh, you better not be gross. Dude, he's one of the Earth's heroes. I'd be like, I would just, Iron Man should just turn around and be like, you know what? This is a bad idea. Get the fuck out of here. That's what really should have happened. What do you mean be gross with you? Shut up, bitch. Get the hell out of here. It's like, I don't have time for you. But no, of course, he's a little beta male. So he's like, I believe you, but I think you'll like this. Oh, so you're just going through a midlife crisis? A man quest? Not the car. Something else. Shows her a case. Ooh, what's in the case? Could it be? Oh my God, it's really true. You're Iron Man. Very funny. Seriously, though, check this out. And he Dun 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 dun. He puts his suit on. Look at me. What do you think? Has she never seen him in an Iron Man suit before? What the? You're kidding. I love vintage clothing. Oh, that's it. He's showing off his new vintage design by Alex Ross. Hellcat approves. What if we ditched this party? How about Iron Man and Hellcat? How about Hellcat? That's a good name. How about Iron Man and Hellcat have a little jaunt through the Big Apple? What about your guests? In 24 minutes, an EMP is going to go off in the building and fry their digital devices. Is this dude a hero? He's going to detonate an EMP in New York City and fry the devices of billionaires who probably use those devices to conduct all sorts of important business. He could be costing the economy millions, hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars in damage. Not to mention what else the EMP might do. Just, is Tony Stark a hero? Is he a fucking sociopath? What the hell? Now I understand the invite list. Got your suit. Never leave home without it. Oh, God. It's dun 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 dun. It's Batcat. Or maybe it's Iron Cat. I don't know. Gotta. Stupid. Anyone seen Tony? Oh. And so then they have their little talk. And they're just sitting up in the tower. It's so romantic. I just love when superheroes sit around talking about their life. That's what I buy comics for. And hold up. Why is there a helicopter? Let's go check it out. Oh, it's Unicorn. Z-list villain. Just, what the? They're like, oh, we got to stop him. And so it's Iron Man and his dominatrix Hellcat woman, like, they're fighting Unicorn, and he gives him a run for his money, even though Iron Man is an Avenger, and he's got, he works for the Other. And there's a cool shot here. I actually have to give credit where credit's due, where he's escaping on the helicopter, and Tony does this cool thing where he just flies through the blades. I thought that was really cool, like a really cool way to take down the helicopter, albeit extremely dangerous in the middle of downtown New York where the thing's going to crash and potentially kill hundreds of people. But, whatever. Crash. Holy. Give it to the holy. So he was stealing a Gutenberg Bible, by the way. Yeah, it's a Gutenberg Bible, he says. The Other will seek vengeance upon you. And then Hellcat kicks him in the head. You think he's really hearing things or just nuts? I think he needs serious help. We'll get him to Bellevue. And then all of a sudden, Zcow! You okay? Definitely not. I think, my ego is still firmly in place. Ha, okay, buddy. Where did that even come from? You were right. Lightning is cool. And that was the guy that proposed to him. I didn't cover it. His whole story was like, I can capture lightning. So I wonder who that could be. Could it be the guy at the party that you blew off who had a lot special powers and then you didn't pay him any attention? And then now he's the villain? Right out of Iron Man 3. And also, like right out of Iron Man 3, you got a woman to come save the day right there. I mean, you don't have Pepper Potts in the story, so we'll just replace her with Hellcat. Stupid. And so back to Twitter, because what's a good Iron Man comic without Iron Man tweeting? I know that one of the 21 existing Gutenberg Bibles was destroyed in our battle with Unicorn, but there was really nothing I could do. Fish on Friday says, blasphemy, you love to see it. Anti-Hero Sandwich says, Iron Man sucks. God vs. Spider-Man says, is Hellcat single? Almond Pants, Fat Tony in the house, and does a Photoshop of Tony. And this, it would be funny if the comic wasn't so groan-inducing. And guess what? Aww, wah, wah, wah. Iron Man deletes his account. Oh, what a beta male. And then, look at that. God is a verb. Buckminster Fuller, to be continued. Next, Iron Man takes the fight to the streets, and plenty of his former foes are lined up to face him, but lurking on the horizon is a threat Tony and the entire cosmos hasn't seen in years. I just don't care. This book was just groan-inducing. It wasn't as bad as, say, Batgirl 50, but it just made you just want to roll your eyes constantly. And the main character, not likable. This is a book called Iron Man. Iron Man is the hero. People are buying the book for Iron Man. They're not buying it for Hellcat. They're not buying it for anyone else. They're not there to see Janet show up and basically, dick smack, what do you, just, I don't know what else to say about this book. The art was pretty cool, but Cantwell doesn't know how to write a comic book. He's writing a TV show in the comics, where in TV shows you can't really do action because you don't have unlimited budgets like comics do. You're not constrained by budgets. You can actually show superheroes doing crazy super fights and things like that. But he's writing where people stand around and talk a lot because that's much cheaper to film. I could go on and just bitch about this comic. I don't think you want to hear me. I don't think you even made it this far. But if you did, I thank you. Tell me what you thought about this comic. Are you reading it? Is it getting better? Are you loving it? Am I just wrong? Or should we change Christopher Cantwell to be Christopher Can't Write Well? My vote's for the latter. This book is 2 stars. Thanks for watching.